Well, yeah, it's a little late, but we were waiting for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl and for Kellen Moore to get hired. It's the coaching carousel show here on the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, to talk about coaches we've already known have been in place. And even Kellen Moore, we knew it was coming and he was going to be in place. I thought it was going to be Dallas. It's not Dallas. We won't start there. We'll actually start with New England. Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
Getting rid of Gerard Mayo after 1 year is curious. Now, Mike Vrabel, very hot name. A lot of teams interested, goes to New England to take over there with Drake May, who had some flashes in his rookie season. So we have a feeling they'll get this thing right.
Yeah, this is one where the writers weren't that creative, right? Mike Vrabel to the Patriots. Oh, everyone could see that coming. There was even a sense that Mayo wasn't good enough to dissuade them from, hey, Vrabel is available and he'll say yes. Well, then that's easy, said and done. So Mike Vrabel, we look back at Tennessee, a lot of people would say he was an overachiever, that those teams overachieved. And you give him a quarterback, this could be pretty good. And again, we're playing all the old hits, Cease. Josh
Yeah.
McDaniel, Josh McDaniel back again. Terrell Williams, there's Detroit. We're going to talk about Detroit coaches on this show. But familiarity, just a lot of familiarity. Ownership has a lot of familiarity. This is like, in a weird way, continuity. Just continuity was something that they were lost for a few years. So I think Patriots fans, it's not exciting, but that's because Vrabel's a known quantity, which is pretty rare, Cease, in the coaching market. It's a known quantity and not someone we remember for failure.
Right. Mike Vrabel's like that old pair of sweatpants I found in the laundry pile. Like, not only are they comfortable, but they
Uh-huh.
kind of make everything look good in the crotchal region. So, that's what Vrabel will do for the Patriots. And they've got tools to work with, man. Like, of
Right.
all the coaching hires we can go over, I mean, is this the only A plus? It might be.
Yeah, I mean, A plus in the sense, and I think Jason Wood, our mutual friend, what's up, Jason, would say, "Hey, we're really bad at predicting how head coach hires are going to go. Our reactions to them often are very much opposite of how things turn out." But this Mike Vrabel hire, the reason you can say something like A plus is because we're not talking about someone having to come in and put in a culture that is foreign to the people in the building. It's almost like the inertia or the natural inclination of the organization is to get back to the Patriot way. A former linebacker for the team that was on Super Bowl winning teams sound familiar. I mean, it's just this guy we know can coach in the NFL.
Yeah, he can coach and he can get it done. Now in Dallas, okay. Okay, Dallas. Flirting with Deion Sanders. That was during our Shrine Bowl show,
Mm-hmm.
which we will get on YouTube. So apologies for the delay there. But like they're flirty with Deion Sanders. They're talking. It's going to be Kellen Moore. It's the worst kept secret in the league. And then it's Brian Schottenheimer. And this has nothing to do with Brian. And certainly we all love Marty. R.I.P. to Marty, right? But my God, Jerry Jones, like, I'm gonna flirt with the pretty girl, and I'm gonna take the beer goggles on with Brian Schottenheimer. That we're all beautiful inside, Sigmund. But
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the Brian Schottenheimer thing, my God, you're talking with and Dion. I know NFL people that were just waiting for Dion to get hired because, like, yeah, that's gonna suck at the pro level. But like Kellen Moore. I don't know if they were really in the Vrabel thing. It's been a while for some of these coaching situations, Bloom, about a month, basically.
yeah,
So with Brian
yeah.
Schottenheimer, it's like I just kind of feel bad for him because it's not going to work. Shocker. And Jerry's going to run the show. Shocker. And then you have to also deal with the fact that you could have been in on these other coaches. Mike McCarthy, it's so bad in Dallas. Mike McCarthy just says, no thanks. I don't want to come back.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much to unpack here. And I guess unless you're a Cowboy fan, Cease, this is the comedy portion of the show.
Ouch.
Right? It is. I mean,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
a wide perception that they were going to keep Mike McCarthy. They did let his contract expire. They didn't let him interview with the Bears, right? Oh, that means they must intend on keeping him. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't keep somebody from exploring a job opportunity knowing that they're about to be on the open market. And then there was disagreement over, I don't know, years or something, whatever. But it came right down to it. In the moment of truth, the two parties were like not able to find a bridge to each other. And now Dallas has to go into the coaching fray late. Like you said, we all jumped to predictable conclusions to Kellen Moore, Deion Sanders. Neither of those came about. Instead, it was something that in hindsight should have been predictable, but predictable because it just shows such a complete lack of imagination in the organization. And see, did you see the clip, the Jerry Jones? I don't know what's the name of the show. He was on some show and was like, "Oh, Jerry Jones can act." You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, he was on Landman.
Right. Do you see the clip
Yeah.
when he's like, "I did whatever I did. I got to work with my kids." Like, is he wasn't acting.
No, he's just being Jerry.
And he's telling the story of the Cowboys. Like, did the Cowboys win a Super Bowl in the last 30 years? No, but I got to work with my kids, you know? And this Brian Schottenheimer and Jason Wood, Brian Schottenheimer may end up being a good hire. I mean, you do see the power of the Cowboys organization. Remember how Dan Quinn bounced back? Eberflus is back. Clayton Adams, I think that's a good hire. The reestablishing the running game. Certainly, the raw materials are there on the Cowboys roster. But the organization, the story of this hire is just an organization that it feels like exactly what Jerry Jones depicted. Like, it's a family business. We're going to run it our way. And in this case, it's like the most low effort, low imagination hire of this cycle.
Yeah, low effort, low imagination, and low grade for me. I guess I'm gonna start grading these Sigmund because it's like,
Yeah.
all right, D, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, yeah. I mean, the grade is like you get held back. Like, you're not evolving as an organization. You're just trying to run it. It's like when Dennis Allen was hired down here in New Orleans. Like, you're just trying to run it back, something that isn't even working anyway.
Right. Yeah, it's troublesome. That's for sure. Troublesome for sure. Cowboys fans were sorry. Jets fans were interested. One, it's Aaron Glenn, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Bloom, booze, noom. I almost
Fake
said.
booze.
Um, it's. I'm not saying it's over for the Lions, but I am already made the statement locally that I'm gonna stop talking about the Lions and the Bills as like these kitschy, plucky, up
Yeah.
and coming. It's their turn. No, it's not. They choke. Okay, and now with Aaron Glenn leaving, he's not the only one. We'll talk about Ben Johnson in
Yeah.
just a little bit, but let's talk about Aaron Glenn. Now, Darren
Yeah.
Mugie's there, and I know Darren quite well. Coming from the Broncos, it is a Broncos show. So Darren is there to be the GM, but it's very true that Woody Johnson's kid is the de facto GM. And that was kind of a, I don't know, joke or, kind of funny story going around the All-Star circuit. Is like, no, it's true. He looks at the Madden ratings and will tell his dad, like, this is what we need to do. And the dad listens. So, I was alerted, like, hey, you need to tell Darren that he's going to have someone else in his office. It's called Woody Johnson's kid. So, okay, that being aside, they are moving on from Aaron Rodgers. We do know that. At least we waited for that, Bloom. So we don't have to, like, what are they going to do? They're going to move on from Aaron Rodgers, wherever he lands, whatever. Who cares? But Aaron Glenn, who we like, he's been in the kind of almost head coach circuit for a couple of years. Defenses with varying results. And we could say Detroit, everybody was hurt and all that. Okay, that's fine. So we're rooting for Aaron Glenn. I know I'm rooting for Darren Mugie, but they don't have a quarterback. They have an owner who's teenage, or is he 20 yet? Anyway, like, kid pretty much kind of runs the team. Like, this is a real billion-dollar franchise. So Aaron Glenn, we wish you luck. You're going to need it.
Yeah. Again, Cease, we hand off from the Cowboys to the Jets, and it's hard to talk about it without saying, how does anything really change if the ownership doesn't change? But this is a change. Like you said, Muji coming from Denver. I was going to ask you about him, just what your impressions are. Connection to Kevin O'Connell, San Diego State, and a quarterback, right? Like the quarterbacks coming up to the game as a quarterback, paired up with Aaron Glenn, who does seem to understand the immense scope of his task. Like, how do you see? It's like an exorcist. Like, how do you get rid of all the bad vibes, all the ghosts of the failures of the past? Like, very similar to what his boss Dan Campbell did in Detroit. And you're right also to bring up that while Detroit did not have a new head coach, Detroit arguably could be more changed by this hiring cycle than some of the teams that hired a new head coach because they did lose both of those assistants. And then, like I said, Terrell Williams, I mean, it's what happens with success. This has been happening to the 49ers, for instance, the Rams now. We'll talk about that in this cycle. So, what it means for them to lose Aaron Glenn, who peaked as a defensive game plan maker in his last few games, save for the game against Washington and Jaden Daniels. But he's ready to change this team. He's going to bring in Engstrand, also, again, from Detroit, from San Diego State. There's also San
Yes.
Diego,
Mm-hmm.
and there's Jim Harbaugh connections all throughout this cycle also. So, and then Steve Wilkes. And hey, yeah, I mean, that's great. That shows you that Aaron Glenn can get in his Rolodex. They still use those, and Steve Wilkes is a great coach to be bringing in to run your defense. So the Jets will be respectable. Will they be able? Can Aaron Glenn become the most powerful force in the organization instead of ownership? Probably not, but we'll be rooting for him.
Yeah, it should happen. And then what do they do at quarterback? Like literally, what do they do at quarterback? Th-
I don't know.
I
Sanders,
you're hearing the Jackson Dart like move back into the
oh
end of the
God,
first for Jackson Dart. That sounds like something Woody Johnson's kid would do. But I don't
yeah,
know what his ratings were on college football 2025, which is
yeah,
awesome, by the way. I'm so glad it's back. But either way,
yeah,
like
yeah.
that's a
I mean, if we're
trouble
being on,
spot
if
for
we're
this
being
team. And go ahead, go ahead. You're getting a little. That New Orleans internet is tricking us today.
Yeah, a lot of people got to find out about that for the Super Bowl. I think if they're being rational, if they're being rational, like Tyrod Taylor, he's still under contract. Like, why wouldn't Taylor be the starter? And maybe you trade for a Joe Milton, or you sign Trey Lance, or otherwise, maybe even Justin Fields if you want to splurge. But you don't necessarily have to solve. Here, enter Matt Waldman. Matt Waldman's been saying this for over a decade. Like, don't feel like you have to solve the quarterback position if there's not a solution there. Just build the team. But like you said, the urgency to get the quarterback probably will force them into a bad decision.
Yeah, sounds about right. Bad decision for Ben Johnson to go to Chicago. Speaking of ownership, speaking of problems, he does have Caleb Williams, who has tremendous natural talent. Okay, there's nothing wrong with his talent. Other things, other questions about like, okay, where's his motivation at? Where's his wherewithal? All these sorts of things. They will be answered. All I know is from a physical gift standpoint, Caleb Williams has it all. And now he has Ben Johnson to run the show. He's done a hell of a job with Jared Goff. So let's discuss if this is going to work out in Chicago. All your Bears fans will say no because of ownership. But again, just like Aaron Glenn, we're rooting for Ben Johnson.
Yeah, again, see, this is the coaching carousel show, but we're talking about ownership. We're always talking about ownership first and foremost. Uh, but certainly, this is a hire that it should be considered a big W. Big W. All right. Bears fans, this was the big fish. And cease right up until the moment it was announced, I think the perception was that Johnson was going to go to the Raiders because of the Tom Brady factor. We'll talk more about that when we get to the Raiders. But Ben Johnson was the belle of the ball. And I'm going to flip this, Cease, because we always talk
Okay.
about we always talk about how coaches stake their career on or their job on a quarterback when they draft them. But in some ways, Ben Johnson has done that with Caleb Williams without he's choosing Williams in a way that
Yes.
franchise quarterback. I mean, new head coaches will get to like say like this is the guy that I'm gonna like. Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson. This idea that if when you say Richardson fails, then you say Steichen failed, and Ben Johnson effectively is doing that. So I think that's what's fascinating, especially because Caleb Williams comes out of his rookie year wounded. Wounded in a sense of the image of Caleb Williams coming out of his rookie years when he's on the bench with his head hanging, right? Like you said, it's Ben Johnson is here to reverse that. And he brings in, and it's a Broncos show. So he's Declan Doyle.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tell us about him.
Another Broncos executive, I believe, was around since Elway. They're all Darren was around since Josh McDaniel. Muji was around since Josh
Yeah,
McDaniel in
right.
Denver. So Declan, because there's been a few Broncos executives. You caught me off guard there, Bloom.
Oh, sorry.
Who came from Tampa Bay? Was that Declan Doyle? Or that no, that's Spytech. See,
Spy Tech going
yeah,
to,
with the
yeah,
Raiders. Yeah,
yeah.
so we got a lot of Broncos executives coming from the Elway regime.
Mm-hmm.
So take that for what you will.
Yeah, and Dennis Allen. There's another Dennis Allen mention. Dennis Allen's going to run the defense there for Ben Johnson, and Ryan Poles. This is another thing we'll watch too. Is Ryan Poles surviving the Matt Eberflus era, and now this is it, the Ben Johnson era. And so we can talk about how we're going to find out with the Lions how much of the offensive success was Ben Johnson, and Tanner Engstrom's gone too. Again, like it wasn't just losing the coordinators for your Lions, you're losing some of the top assistants, position coaches, but also it's Ben Johnson. We see it all the time. These very successful coordinators, when they make the leap to head coach, it's a different job. It's a totally different job.
Mm-hmm.
And will he be able to do that? I think Bears fans are happy just that there's a chance that he might be able to after the run the franchise has been on.
There's a chance that he's the best one from this class. So if Mike Vrabel was an A plus, Ben Johnson's got to be A at least.
Yeah, W.
Okay, I like that. I like that. What is Liam Coen besides weird? Okay,
Mm.
like and God bless, everyone. Be as weird as you like. It's only weird if you make it weird, right? Isn't that what the great Dr. Gene always said?
Mm-hmm.
But the whole press conference, the Duval thing, sorry, it's not cool. I know Jaguars fans don't even like me because I mispronounced the name and whatever, and you're gonna be in London, but like it's just not cool. And then when he's like Duval and he like has to force it, a lot of Adam Gase follow crazy eyes vibes. Didn't you get that? And then the internet is undefeated because of course I had Adam Gase like looking at tacos or whatever at that press conference. He was on one. Adam Gase was on one. I want to find out what he was on, allegedly, or what I have to say. Liam Cohen, why do you have to do the Duval thing? And
Right.
if you do that, why do you have to make it sound so weird? Because instead of talking about Liam, and by the way, the whole situation was weird, right? Hey, the Buccaneers are keeping Liam Cohen. I think I had written on our Football Guys Newswire, well, of course, he's going to stay with Baker Mayfield, and he's done really good work with Baker, and they're going to continue, and he's almost the head coach in waiting in Tampa. That was the talk. He was the head coach in waiting in Tampa. And then, hey, how about we get rid of Trent Baalke?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Right, Cease, right. No, I mean, again, the story here is compelling, and the way it reflects all the figures and franchises involved. Because you start with the Jags, and the announcement was that okay, Doug Peterson's out, but they're keeping Trent Baalke, and Cease. It was even with the league insiders saying that they're even hearing people in the league saying, "What? Ha ha ha! Like you're kidding me!" So then to later in the cycle to say, this is the power that Liam Cohen has. He's like, well, I'll take the job if Balky's not the GM. Like, well, okay. And I think to this moment, we're not sure who the GM is going to be. John Robinson, I think, is the latest name that came up. Tennessee fans are laughing.
Ian Cunningham, my
Yeah.
buddy, assistant with the Bears, he's getting an interview there. So I'm rooting for Ian in that.
But it's odd. It's odd to be in February and a team doesn't have a GM and they do have a new head coach. Does that mean Liam Coen is more powerful? Probably, like the coach emperor. But betrayal, Shakespearean betrayal. And
Mhm.
some might say, cease and speak on this if help indulge me, that uh, tell me what you think. What's your reaction to the idea that like now Liam Coen has shown the league that he's not like Josh McDaniel, he's not trustworthy. He's violated one of the unwritten rules.
Mhm. Oh, that'll be a thing. That's what they're talking about for sure. So, and with Jacksonville, it's like, okay, he got a lot out of Baker Mayfield. What does he do for Trevor Lawrence? Right? And is Lawrence really
Mm,
that guy? Why is Lawrence leveled off? Why have Lawrence even maybe in your eyes, Bloom, taken a step back?
right. Right. Well, I mean, that's the question. There's some bizarre thing out there. I don't need to even give credence to stuff like the Steelers are exploring trading for Trevor Lawrence, or the idea that Trevor Lawrence is a player. I mean, he's still the future of the Jags, and I guess what you're looking at, Cease, is like his career took off into the turbulence of Urban Meyer, and then Doug Peterson, when we reflect on the Doug Peterson era of this offense, it still wasn't a dynamic offense or an offense that really allowed Trevor Lawrence to to play. I guess I can look at what the Chargers did for Justin Herbert this year, and why can't you? It the offense was so structured and so unimaginative that it didn't allow his greatness to come to the surface in the context of the game. Now, can Liam Coen do that? Judging by how Baker Mayfield played, I think so, because Baker Mayfield played with the confidence of a quarterback that knows that he can be right at that edge of some decisions. I mean, he led the league in turnovers, right? Like, he can be right at that edge, but because of that, summing up the plays that only he can. And I think that Trevor Lawrence, it can light his fuse. But like you said, there's this other stink around this whole situation. Is Liam Coen even a good leader of men at the head coach level? And he brought in Shane Waldron to be the passing game coordinator, but also Grant Udinsky, who's like another Kevin O'Connell disciple. And I think Vikings people are like, oh, they got a good one there. So he's the actual offensive coordinator, but Shane Waldron, we don't love that. Anthony Campanile from the Green Bay defense. Yeah, that's a good unit to get your defensive coordinator from. But like you said, Cease, what's going to stick in everyone's mind is this idea that Liam Cohen's kind of creepy.
Just weird, just
Yeah.
odd, just really, really odd. Not odd because of the OC. And Bloom, you've been dropping in the OCs and all that as we've been going on here. But our next one up is the Vegas Raiders. And while Pete Carroll is, up there in age and how much longer and everything's competition, he still connects with younger players. I honestly think the story here
Mm-hmm.
is the Chip Kelly hire.
Mm-hmm.
Chip Kelly's going to be a problem. A problem. A guy that was ushered out of this league. And who in the hell was that a Blaine Gabbert year? His 49ers year was a Blaine Gabbert year, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like my old man brain is going, wait a second, because he got it done with Nick Foles, Michael Vick, Sam Bradford, Mark Sanchez. And then when he went to the 49ers, Blaine Gabbert got him out of the league, and people are like making fun of it. And now there are teams that use Chip Kelly concepts. Like that's become popular. It's Chip Kelly concepts and Mike Shanahan concepts
Mm-hmm.
in this league. So now Chip Kelly is back with Pete Carroll. Again, they don't have a quarterback, but they got a Brock Bowers. That goes a long ways. Shadur Sanders saying, I'm not falling to 6. Well, are we sure about that? And Shadur would be an odder fit. I think Shadur needs to go to like an Aaron Glenn. I think he needs to go to like a Dan Campbell, like that sort of, lineage, that sort of offense, a Ben Johnson like offense, because Shadur is a pocket passer, not much of a runner. Chip Kelly would make it work though.
Yeah, I like you putting Chip Kelly in the lead there. And I suppose, you know, again, for Raiders fans, you go into the offseason just despondent about the state of your franchise. And again, ownership feeling like, well, as long as Mark Davis is calling the shots, but an enter stage left Tom Brady. And now he's the figure that we are most associating with the Raiders and how they go forward. And we'll learn about like Tom Brady, the executive, or Tom Brady. You mentioned John Elway with Denver. I mean, he's going to have like that level of influence, I think, on the direction. Let's start John Spytek. I mean, there's connections there from
Mm-hmm.
Michigan. There's connections there from Tampa Bay.
Yep.
So that's a Tom Brady hire. And then Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is credibility, right? Credibility whenever this franchise, the list of head coaches they have hired since that Super Bowl loss, it's not great. So Pete Carroll, I think, brings franchise culture that we know his energy, something should be cleansing for this franchise. And then we get to Chip Kelly. They're keeping Patrick Graham, by the way, on defense. You get to Chip Kelly. And I think what's fun about the Chip Kelly story, and this is a fantasy football story for sure, is that he has evolved. He's like
Yeah.
Bill Belichick. He and Belichick are, thick as thieves as far as the specific place, like the football mad scientist. There's only a certain, see, you use the term we were talking off the air recently, like ascended master, like an ascended master in terms of being like a football wizard and just
Mm-hmm.
treating the football field as like their chemistry lab. There's not that many that occupy the level as a coach, but Chip Kelly and Bill Belichick are two of them. And I think that no matter how you remember Chip Kelly's first foray into the NFL, he's changed. He's learned. He's changed. It's what's here's symmetry for you, Cease. Chip Kelly brought college concepts to the pros and made the pro offenses more like college offenses. Then he went back to college to learn how to run a pro offense. That's the story of Chip Kelly. So he goes back to college and learns the pro concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have a new and improved Chip Kelly. And like you said, like with so many of these teams, like who's the quarterback going to be? But overall, even though there was a moment Raiders fans go into the offseason depressed, and then you're going to get Ben Johnson, you're going to get the big hire. The last second you don't. But instead, what you get is Pete Carroll, and who could not feel good about rooting for a team coached by Pete Carroll? Because what you got with Pete Carroll, by the way, best moment of the entire coaching carousel cycle, without a doubt. Our president, Marshawn Lynch, is in the back of the room at the press conference the whole time. No, I don't think anybody's aware. Yeah. And Pete
Yeah.
Carroll's talking about bringing back pride to the franchise. He just goes, Raider, just Oakland, that spirit that's still alive in silver and black. It's still alive when you see that logo. And Pete Carroll is a good person to be the keeper of that as he and Tom Brady try to bring it back.
Bring it back. Chip Kelly, because you mentioned chemistry.
Yeah.
Think about this, Bloom. He is an alchemist.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is so crazy, though. I'll give you another symmetry for you. Tom Brady of the Tuck Rule game is now at the wheel, at the captain of the Raiders pirate ship.
Yep.
Of all he killed the franchise, and now he's going to resurrect it.
Okay, there you go. Final one we're going to talk about in Coaching Carousel Show. It is the Audible Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and all that YouTube stuff. Thank you. Kellen Moore. All right. Kellen Moore goes to New Orleans. So what I think is funny is that he blew out Derek Carr in a Boise State Fresno State game years ago. I think it was like 52-7.
Yeah.
But like now he gets to run the show. Derek Carr is going to stay as quarterback one more year. And then here's my conspiracy theory, Bloom, as we get our tinfoil hats on. Conspirare, which means with the same spirit. Let's get all on the same page of Arch Manning to New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Why not? It definitely is one that everybody agreed that the Saints opening was the worst opening. The week of the Super Bowl down here in New Orleans, there was a brief moment of scandalization, which is a story that was here locally about a year ago about the Saints PR helping the Catholic Church in the PR campaign about pedophile priests and court uh, proceedings. And already the franchise, the opening as far as the salary cap and what you have to work with going forward with the roster was seen as by far the worst choice. Why would Kellen Moore take it? And see, so I'm with you in thinking of this in terms of conspiracy theories, in the sense that I just think that while everybody looks at it and says, why would Kellen Moore take this job? It's a dead end job, and you're going to basically be saddled with the failure of something that was set in motion that you really didn't create. I think around the league, it's a cartel. Okay, it's a very small group,
Oh yeah.
and he's kind of like doing a favor. He's doing a favor for the family, and everybody understands that somebody has to take this job. uh, I don't think they're going to hold it against him. I mean, he may get, I mean, it's the Saints, Scale Benson, so he may get 5 years anyway. But as we wait, I can't say anything about the coordinators and what's to come, but we saw it year after year after year. See, so I think the Saints do stand for this idea of can you continue to kick the pain off down the road into the future and outrun it, because it seems like it's catching up, and it's catching up just when Kellen Moore arrives. So he gets to go out as a Super Bowl champion, and Jalen Hurts, whatever Kellen Moore did with X's and O's, Jalen Hurts was comfortable, and the franchise settled down after really going down in flames at the end of 2023. So Vic Fangio gets a lot of credit. Kellen Moore gets a lot of credit for that, because they were the ones that had to come in and get things back in gear. But this Saints franchise, you mentioned, you can turn it inside out. You say Arch Manning. What that means is, they're going to be picking very high in the draft. They're going to be a bad team for a little while.
Yeah, make it happen. And Liam Coen could have a better record than Kellen Moore. Both of them get fired in a couple years, and Cohen's betrayal will be held against him much more
Right.
than anything Moore does.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing people have to remember about this is it's a sewing circle. It's a small group.
Yep.
And, that's part of the thing too about the nature of these hires. As we'll run down some of the other big hires as we go out the door, is it still feels like it's a very closed world, and a place where it's difficult for new ideas and new ways of doing things to break in.
What did George Carlin always say? Like, it's a small club, and you ain't in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. We wrapping? Is that it? You did the coordinators
Yeah,
as we
well,
went. Boom.
and also just real quick, some other things that we'll watch. Well, let me ask you about another Sean Payton guy, Cease. Can I ask you about John Morton, who is one of those
Likes to yell a
replacement?
lot. I'm pretty sure the text messages between Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin were like, "Oh yeah," because Johnny Moe yells a lot.
Okay, well, hey, he's got that Peyton Harbaugh connection, so he's going to be going to Detroit. Tommy Reese is interesting because he was at Alabama with Jalen Milroe. Is that the question? Nick Caley in Houston, another McVay. Um, Big one we could look back as consequential is Clint Kubiak going up to Seattle. So that's going to be really interesting to see what he can do. And I think that as we unravel all these stories, Cease, I do want to say back to you covering the Broncos, Sean Payton. It's clear that the league is looking at what Sean Payton is doing in Denver and voting yes for that and saying yes, they want some of that. So that's a great sign of where the Broncos are headed. I think that's one of the hidden stories of this coaching cycle. And Cecil Lammey will be there to break it all down for you, Denver.
Yeah, I'll be at the scouting combine in about a week and a half, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll be talking more about everything that's going on, because that's what we do. It is the Audible. It's footballguys.com. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We certainly appreciate that. And however you listen to your podcasts, we appreciate you now in year 20. Not quite there when we get to the pre-draft, like right at the end of April. That'll be our 20th official 20th anniversary, but it is year 20 of the Audible. We appreciate that. See Sigmund Bloom. Eyes up, Bloom. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He's Sig. Follow him on all the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show's at The Audible saying thanks. Stay tuned. Stay frosty.